behalf of Famagusta Association UK, I would like to welcome our distinguished guests, especially the members of Parliament and other special guests. I would also like to thank all the members of Parliament who sponsor the event tonight. And they are the following: the Right Honourable Teresa Villiers, Right Honourable Simon Hughes, Sir Alan Mill, Dr. Matthew Offord, Dr. Julian Happert, Gareth Thomas, Jim Dobbin, David Crosby, Jim Sheridan, David Barrows, Jeremy Corbyn, Andrew Love, Nick Dubois, Lynn Featherstone. This is a special occasion for us because the British members of Parliament embrace and support our efforts for the return of Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants, as it was agreed in the high-level agreements between Kyprianou Tektash of 1979 and the different United Nations Security Council resolutions, such as the 550 of the 1984. As I said before, today with us we will have shortly our distinguished guest, Mr. Alexis Galanos, who is the mayor of the occupied Famagusta, our city which awaits for now 40 years to be freed. Mr. Galanos is a postgraduate of Cambridge University and is also a barrister at law at Inner Temple. In 1976, he was elected as a member of the House of Representatives in the Famagusta district and was re-elected at the same position in 1981, 1985, 1991, and 1996. From 1991 to 1996, he was the elected president, spokesperson of the House of Representatives. Apart from chairing different parliamentary committees, Alexis Galanos was the head for many years of the parliamentary delegation of Cyprus in the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe and the Inter-Parliamentary Union. He was also chairman of the Joint Parliamentary European Committee on Cyprus and head of the Cyprus Parliamentary Delegation. Mr. Alexis Galanos has been elected mayor of the occupied town of Famagusta since December 2006. He has also been elected as the president of all municipalities in Cyprus in 2012. Along with Mr. Alexis Galanos, we would have here with us the deputy mayor of Famagusta, Mr. Simos Ioannou, and the councillor, Mr. Hachikakou, Kostas Hachikakou, which we also welcome. The important issue that we as citizens of Famagusta, but refugees at the same time, and indeed all Cypriots, is to find a way forward, to be able to find a solution that binds the country together. A bizonal, bicommunal, federal state which unites with a single sovereignty, a single international personality, and a single citizenship, without foreign troops of occupation and without guarantor powers who will have the right for interference. The people of Cyprus deserve the right to live in peace in their own country. As a priority for us and as a measure of goodwill, and in order to create good relations between the two communities, the Famagusta case is the best available opportunity. This is why our association started a campaign for the return of Famagusta back to its inhabitants. The Famagusta Association of Great Britain, whose members and their families are displaced citizens of the Cypriot town of Famagusta and who are now citizens in Britain, recently embarked on a campaign inviting people to sign a petition for the return of Famagusta to its rightful inhabitants, in accordance to the United Nations and European Union resolutions. Our petition has been signed by over 50,000 people, including many dignitaries. it is very important to point out that Turkish Cypriots assisted us in this effort and they signed the petition too. At the same time, in cooperation with the Turkish Cypriot organization Famagusta Initiative in Cyprus, in the old part of Famagusta, and in the occupied part, they carried out an opinion poll in which 73% of the Famagusta Turkish Cypriots polled voted in favor of the return of Famagusta to its rightful inhabitants in accordance to the United Nations and European Union resolutions. It is very important to note that only 4% voted against, and the rest, 23%, did not vote at all, remaining therefore neutral. So I emphasize 73% of those asked voted for the return of the legitimate inhabitants of Famagusta, or the lawful inhabitants of Famagusta, to go back to their hometown. It is of vital importance to point out that the Turkish Cypriot Association for Democracy, which is based in London, fully supported both the petition and the opinion poll. The parties share the same belief that the return of both the town and the port to its lawful inhabitants will pave the way for a comprehensive economic development program to the benefit of both communities. These benefits shall strengthen the bond between the two communities, which, through socio-economic and cultural cooperation, will serve as a catalyst and the driving force in reaching a final solution to the Cyprus problem. Since the 1974 invasion and military occupation of the northern part of Cyprus, there have been declarations by both communities that priority should be given to the return of the town of Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants. The most significant among these being the 1979 negotiations between the two community leaders, who jointly agreed that priority should be given to the return of Greek Cypriot refugees to their town of Famagusta. At the same time, there were many United Nations Security Council resolutions, such as the 550 of 1984, asking Turkey to return the town of Famagusta back to its lawful inhabitants before the start of negotiations, and as a gesture of goodwill, without giving to Turkey anything in return. The result of our petition was welcomed by the British Prime Minister, David Cameron, and by British MPs and the Foreign Office. Also, we submitted copies of the petition to the President of the European Commission, Mr. José Manuel Barroso, the President of the European Council, Mr. Herman Van Rompuy, the President of the European Parliament, Mr. Martin Schulz, to the leaders of the main British political parties, the General Secretary of the United Nations, the President of the United States of America, and the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and others. The excellent news is that most of these centers of decision-making embraced and adopted our position. For the first time, we heard from the United States of American government, the European Commission, the European Parliament, and the European Council that priority in the Cyprus negotiations is to be given to the return of Famagusta to its legal inhabitants. Perhaps this is one of the strongest indications of pressurizing Turkey to go forward on the Cyprus issue. Another obvious example of creating a window of opportunity is the exchange of visits by members of the two communities. A brilliant example is the arrangement through the mayor of Famagusta to celebrate Good Friday in the enclosed church of St. George in Famagusta. For this, we would hear more from our guest, the mayor of Famagusta, Mr. Alexis Galanos. Thank you again for the honor to attend our event.
The opportunity to come and meet the Famagusta Association. I've had the opportunity to talk to Dr. Mavru and his colleagues when you were doing the rounds with the petition a little earlier this month, last month, I beg your pardon. I think I got a better deal than President Mr. Schultz and all those other people who you presented the petition to, because I also got this great, gorgeous book of photographs from telling the stories of people who lived in Famagusta and who want to go back. I should say that in my time as Shadow Minister for Europe, and I was appointed to the brief back in October, that I have had the chance to meet with the Cypriot Foreign Minister, Mr. Kasaloudis, and also Mr. Omaru, who's the leader of EDEC, my party's sister party, and obviously the Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Cyprus. Now, I'm very conscious that I do not know the story of Famagusta as well as colleagues like Andy and Jim and Stephen Alambritis, the leader of Merton Council. But I'm very grateful to the time, Dr. Mavru, that you took to explain the story to me. And I hope that I will have the chance in the coming 12 months to go to Cyprus and to see for myself Famagusta and Varosha, and to understand the reality of the situation on the ground at the moment. I should say I was struck as well, Dr. Mavru, by the fact that you came with Mr. Hassan Raif from the Turkish Cypriot Association for Democracy, which is a reminder that this is an issue about economic and social justice and isn't necessarily, as it's sometimes portrayed, an issue about the divisions between two peoples. Now, it's clearly very encouraging that comprehensive talks have begun again. It was encouraging to see that the President, forgive my pronunciation, Anastasiadis. I was going to say that, but you got there first for me. Thank you very much. And the Turkish Cypriot leader as well met again yesterday, building on the work of negotiators who I understand have been meeting every week. Now, the crucial thing, it seems to me, is to recognise just how symbolic and significant Famagusta, particularly the port of Famagusta, and Varosha are, and to remember the history which you alluded to. What is it? 2 UN Security Council resolutions making clear they need to be returned to the rightful residents, and a very clear statement too from the European Parliament just a couple of years ago, again underlining the need for it to be returned to the people who once lived there and were forced out. Now, I do believe that we have to continue to give space to the negotiators from both sides, and the 7 different working groups that there are that are going through the thorniest issues between the two sides need to be allowed to do their work. But we cannot forget what's happened in the past, and it seems to me entirely appropriate that we should remember that allowing people to return to Famagusta or putting Varosha under UN control were ideas from previous rounds of discussions as a way of trying to build confidence between the two sides. And again, I think that such measures need to be thought through if confidence is to be built. because there is no doubt that if you're involved in difficult negotiations, creating the social cement that keeps people able to continue to talk together as you deal with very difficult issues is hugely important. And there's not many more significant ways, it seems to me, to build trust than to allow people to return to Famagusta and to the places where they used to live. So we will do our part from Labour's front bench, and I have no doubt that Andy and Jim and others like Alan Meal, who I know you're going to hear from later, will continue to remind us of our responsibilities to put pressure on both the current government and people in Europe who also have the opportunity to put pressure on both sides to come together, not to forget the issue of Famagusta and Varosha and all those people who lost their homes when the invasion took place. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everybody. On behalf of the High Commissioner, Ambassador Evriviadis, who is unable today to attend this event, he is participating in a Wilton Park conference for 3 days on a personal invitation by the Minister of the Foreign Office, Mr. Swire. He, through me, accept his greetings and his congratulations for organizing this event. And on his behalf, I would like to just say a few words in anticipation of the mayor of Famagusta, who is running late from the airport. First of all, I would like to commend and congratulate the Famagusta Association, the chairman, Mr. Vasilis Mavros, the MPs who sponsored this event, the MPs who are here today. Thank you very much showing this interest for a very rightful cause, the return of the town of Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants. I would like to comment on 2-3 things on behalf of the government of Cyprus, because it is important, of course, in my mind, the civil society's efforts, both on the ground in Cyprus, but also the civil society, the associations here in the UK, the most massive diaspora of Cypriots abroad, and particularly you, Vasili, and the friends that are here today, in creating a momentum for the return of Famagusta. I think the efforts of the government are running hand in hand with the efforts of the civil society, and I think when the mayor comes, he will say much more on the efforts he has been exerting for creating this momentum in Cyprus. You mentioned just one case, the announcement yesterday in the press that the mayor has agreed to have the service of the Holy Friday in 2 weeks' time in St. George, in the occupied area of Famagusta, with having a litany also of epitafios in the area of Famagusta, which is a welcome development. Parallel to these efforts of the civil society is the efforts of the government of Cyprus. From the moment the current government took office, President Anastasiadis himself announced an initiative, again, to present a proposal for the return of Famagusta. We are optimistic about the momentum that this proposal has been gaining over the months and now after a year. And I can tell you personally also, I have been present here in London on every occasion that we have a visit, either by the President or the Foreign Minister. Mr. Kassoulidis was recently here and had a meeting with the Minister for Europe, Mr. Lidington. They all mentioned there is not a single meeting with their counterparts that Famagusta, the proposal by the President, is not presented and argued upon, presenting the merits of this proposal, which is simply the return of Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants, the ghost town, the opening of the port of Famagusta under the auspices of the European Commission, that there is no issue of separate sovereignty and all that stuff. By that event, the opening of the port, automatically then we would have the opening of the 8 chapters that have been blocked by a council decision of the European Union for Turkey's accession to the European Union, creating again a momentum to that accession process. And simply it's a win-win situation for everybody. And rightfully, I think, and from the response we get from foreign governments, and you mentioned very rightly, I think, Vasily, the response from various governments is positive. The argument we are making to them, and I think we are gaining ground on this, is that this issue of the return of Famagusta, it's a game changer for the solution of the Cyprus problem. It should not be seen as part of the comprehensive solution, not only because there is a resolution 550 of 1984 specifically mentioning that the return of Famagusta should be made as a priority, not waiting for the comprehensive solution, not only for the legal reasons, but politically. It's a game changer because at various levels it will change the whole game for the solution. First of all, it's a game changer for the minds of the Greek Cypriot refugees. If you read the polls of the past, one of the major concerns of the Greek Cypriot community was the doubt that they had in their minds that Turkey would actually honor the agreement that it would make, that they would actually return the territory that they would promise to do. By having a concrete step of such magnitude, the return of the town of Famagusta, it will really convince and reassure the Greek Cypriots that they are going to a referendum later on, that Turkey means business for the first time, that we have a concrete step, not words, not promises that have been not fulfilled in the past. Secondly, the operation of the port of Famagusta, again, together between Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots, it will be a test case. Not that we need, as Greek Cypriots, we need any test that we can work very well with our Turkish Cypriot counterparts. But it would prove to everybody else that the two communities can work together at the port and create a hub of cooperation in Cyprus. Another level that this would create positive results is that the Turkish accession to the European Union by opening so many chapters because of the trade that it would create. All these show that our proposal, the demand of the people of Famagusta to return to their house, has merits and is winning some ground with the foreign governments. I think, I cannot say much, but from what we see until today, Vasilis has mentioned some governments. We have seen I will call it enhanced interest by the Americans, for example, the United States of America, on the issue. They are very much involved, they are interested. They will be, we expect them to be more positive, they are more active in that aspect. We hope that at some point in time, with the agreement of the two parties, there will be a team of experts entering Famagusta to see, review the situation of the city, the reconstruction needed, the refurbishment. The buildings there are very old, as you understand, and this will create, again, by its own right, a momentum for the return of Famagusta. I will finish, I think, in waiting for the mayor to tell us more about the efforts that civil society is making himself, by reassuring all of you, really, that you have this interest for the return of Famagusta, that the government is exerting every effort, really, to present this case in a passionate manner, I would say, with all its merits, because it's really, we believe it, it's a win-win situation, and nothing can really, there is no negative aspect of it. Let's be honest, and I will be blunt. The town of Famagusta is a ghost town for 40 years. There is no reason whatsoever for Turkey not to return it back, except apart from the reason, the only reason is that they are using this town as a trump card, I would say, in the diplomatic game they are playing for so many years. I'm not going to get into a blame game. We're in the middle of a process now that started. I wouldn't like to do that. But the truth of the matter is that it was not the Turkish Cypriots that they were against the return of Famagusta. It was Turkey itself, always, and for the reason I have just bluntly said. I think they have been using this issue, and you will see that every time this issue is presented, The regular answer we get is that it's part of the comprehensive solution. No, it's not. Not because the resolutions say it's a matter of priority, but also because it will help create a momentum for the solution of a comprehensive settlement of the Cyprus problem. So I would finish and conclude by congratulating you again, Vasily, for this initiative, of all the people that are here, of the members of parliament that they have showed their interest many times in the past for this issue, for the issue of the solution, the comprehensive settlement. Gareth Thomas, I was present with the foreign minister, Kasoulidis was here last month and he met with Gareth Thomas and Lidington. He mentioned it, that our foreign minister is missing no opportunity to present this issue to his counterparts. Again, Andy Love, I see David Barrows, Mill, and thank you very much for your interest. But the floor, waiting for the mayor to enlighten us more. Yes.
I've drawn the short straw. I now know what it's like to be a fill-in for the Mayor of Famagusta, as we all await his arrival. Dr. Galanos is a very good friend, as has already been mentioned. He spent quite a long time here in this country before returning to pursue his career and his political career in Cyprus, and that's left him with a very good appreciation of the United Kingdom, and left him with lots and lots of friends here in the United Kingdom, and many of them members of Parliament like myself, who listen I tried to come early. I was as early as a Member of Parliament can be, in the hope that I would be able to hear the Mayor. I still hope that we will be able to, but we are subject to the diktats of the finance bill, which is being debated on its second reading at the moment, and it may end at any time, in which case we will be called away. Let me start by congratulating the Famagusta Society and indeed Dr. Vasily Mavru for this initiative. I think it's really important for all the reasons that you've heard from the top table here today, because an initiative on Famagusta really dates back, as someone said earlier on, to the high-level agreements. It was placed in the high-level agreements because of its importance in finding a solution to the Cyprus problem. And it was placed in there because of the necessity to reach out from both communities to find a solution to Famagusta that could be built upon for the overall solution in Cyprus. And of course that has continued right throughout this very, very long period of time. As Gareth Thomas mentioned, there have been 2 United Nations resolutions specifically mentioning Famagusta and raising its importance. We have the initiative being pursued by the current President, Mr. Anastasiadis, to help Gareth Thomas again, put there centrally for the reasons that have already been stated, the need to build on the initiative of bringing the people of Famagusta back to where they belong as a way of inspiring the negotiating process. But all of those things have been part and parcel of the negotiations over the years. We have had one initiative following another, and we didn't seem, after all of the difficulties and problems and arguments that have been created, we didn't seem to be moving that fast forward on Famagusta. I think what has changed the whole situation as far as this is concerned has been, first of all, the very high profile that the new government and President Anastasiadis has given to Famagusta and to putting it right at the centre of the process. And indeed, that is included in the memorandum that was produced, the memorandum that took rather longer than I suspect any of us thought, but it was really important that that memorandum included within it mention of Famagusta and the need for an initiative to take this process forward. But I think Dr. Mavru really hit the nail on the head when he talked about the attitude of the Turkish Cypriot community, and indeed the very important Famagusta initiative that is being pursued by the mayor of Famagusta and by the people who live in that particular part of Cyprus. And I think it's critical that we understand that on the basis of clear public opinion amongst Turkish Cypriots that they wish to return Famagusta to the people to whom it belongs is a break with the past. It is a incredibly strong signal that there's bicommunal agreement on the future of Famagusta. And whilst the initiative that they're undertaking has differences, there are different emphases with the Famagusta proposal from Dr. Anastasiades, it does seem to me that there's a strong community of interest on both sides to move forward on Famagusta, to do what's necessary to bring the two sides together for an agreement and really to launch the peace process on a very positive track that perhaps it hasn't been on for a number of years. And let me just finish on that theme, because I've always been someone who thought that confidence-building measures had a role to play. I know that that's gone back and forward over the years. Some people have thought that confidence-building measures is a cul-de-sac that you go down. Others have been of the opinion that you can really build success on something like the Famagusta confidence-building measure. I certainly think it has a role to play. I do believe that putting your reputation and political capital behind it, especially when it's met with such a positive response from the Turkish Cypriot community, that leads me to believe that we should be, as this petition has sought to do, we should be raising the profile of Famagusta as one method, not the only, but one method in which to reach limited agreement on the return and to build the confidence of the two communities and the negotiating parties for a comprehensive settlement. So I wish the petition success. I wish the Famagusta initiative of the Turkish Cypriot community success. I do hope that the negotiators will take seriously the proposal made by President Anastasiades. If we can bring those three things together at the same time, then we would have much more confidence that this negotiating process will deliver the goods where it hasn't done in the past.
What I'd like to say is three of the images that abide with me in relation to Famagusta was when I first visited Cyprus with my family soon after actually being elected, and just standing there at the fence and just seeing a city frozen in time in Varosha, Famagusta. And it wasn't just my reaction, I'm a politician, it was my wife's reaction of just saying, this doesn't make human sense. It doesn't make sense at all, and no one can justify it on issues of humanity and human rights and decency in a modern civilized world that we live in. And that's where Famagusta lies. It isn't part of really being part of, although it needs to be a confidence-building measure and part of a negotiating process, but purely in itself, it just doesn't stand, it shouldn't stand, and the status quo is unacceptable, and that's what you're agitating for. But my second abiding image, when I went back to look where the nearest we could get at night time to the Famagusta region, and you see lights twinkling along the Famagusta region. Lights are twinkling, and then you see darkness. You see darkness around the gated frozen off area. darkness which is unacceptable, apart from, sadly, a few glimmering lights of one or two Turkish people in the middle of Famagusta. But that is unacceptable, and that is something which abides with me. And the third image is the images that you all have and hold dear, is the pictures and the videos that I've seen, which reminds us that this is a living issue, one that matters, that's human lives that have been introduced, that properties have been lost, and human rights have been ignored. And we, as politicians, never forget that every day that goes by is a day too long for when you should be able to return to Varosha Famagusta. And we need to be campaigning all the time about this. The petitions which, on a cross-party basis and a cross-community basis, with Turkish Cypriots that we lodged with the to the Prime Minister, need to continue. And we need to make the voice loud and clear that this issue in itself, obviously we want a comprehensive settlement, but this issue in itself matters not only to Famagustans, but it should also matter to the British Parliament as well. And you want to hear from the main guest here, so I'll step down. Thank you very much.
This problem remains a problem of occupation, invasion, but occupation by the Turkish army. We have 40,000 troops. The number 40,000 may be a recent number. You have seen the papers, the number of 40,000. What is happening somewhere else, somewhere in Europe. And of course, we cannot establish double standards. Same things happen everywhere. And if we allow them to happen here, they will happen there. And we have the settlements and the change of demography and a lot of other important things happening in Cyprus, and recent things, the discovery of natural gas, the geopolitics in the area, and all these things, in our opinion, dictate that we must see a solution to the Cyprus problem. It's in the interest of everybody. It's in the interest of the people of Cyprus, it's in the interest of Europe, it's in the interest of UK, it's the interest of Turkey. To establish the right psychology after all these years, I think a very important confidence building measure is necessary. One can say, and why? Should Turkey allow Famagusta to be returned as a gesture of goodwill? Why should they give Famagusta away? It's an important negotiating card. But I say it's a hot potato in the hands of Turkey. What can they do about Famagusta? Have in the eyes of the world a ghost town, as you have very rightly described it, darkness everywhere. Of course, you have refugees in Cyprus and you have refugees all around the world. But a ghost town in Europe is something unique. And I think that Turkey is exposed by allowing this situation to continue. And at the same time, opening Famagusta, and when we say opening Famagusta, and this is a proposal of Mr. Anastasiadis, Mr. Christofias before Mr. Papadopoulos, but I have to explain what we mean. It's not a click, just pressing a button and all of a sudden this ghost town becomes a future, a beautiful town around us. Opening Famagusta, we mean to start the procedure, to allow experts of United Nations to enter the town and prepare plans of how to resettle the town. That will take time. In the meantime, the talks can go on. But there will be psychology, a right psychology, that Turkey is really interested, has a political will for a solution to the Cyprus problem. Because with this move, starting on Famagusta, which may take 4, 5, 10 years to be a European town functional, as we want it, in the meantime, I think we'll proceed to the solution of the Cyprus problem. So what we need after 40 years is a message of goodwill. To demonstrate that we really mean that we go ahead and we go ahead with a solution to the Cyprus problem, and we mean what we say. So the question of Famagusta is a question of the Cyprus issue, a Cyprus problem. Doing this move, I think that we establish the necessary goodwill. And necessary goodwill, definitely, is to give back a town that for humanitarian reasons, simply humanitarian reasons, shouldn't be in the situation it is now. For humanitarian reasons and for reasons of international legality, and for reasons of the rule of law and decisions of the Security Council 557-9 decisions of the European Parliament, decisions of the Council of Europe. So I don't use all these decisions and say, you know, this is international law, this is the rule of law, they have to obey that. I know we live in a contemporary world and political considerations are equally important or maybe even more important than legal issues. We cannot hide behind. We have to use them, but we cannot hide because with legal issues, legality in the long term, I don't know, in the long term we shall all be dead. Lord Keynes, by the way, and you know that. So politically is a very important political move, the move about Famagusta, particularly now, because after 40 years, is make or break. We want to make. Believe me, our side want to make. We have no illusions. Solution will be very difficult. They are very difficult issues to be resolved. But the most important thing of all is for people to live together in Cyprus. And Cyprus to be a bridge of peace, and an important bridge of peace for Europe. In these turbulent times, it's very necessary for Cyprus to be part of the solution for the European family, part of the solution for the West, and not a part of the problem in this very difficult situation we are now, in the Arab world, in the game of natural gas, in the game of energy. So that's a very necessary move that we see ahead. And we see that the question of Famagusta is very closely linked with the solution to the Cyprus problem and moving ahead with the talks now. If we delay that, then I think that we go again into negativity and it will help nobody. So I'm not invoking only the interests of the people of Cyprus. And of course, I'm here for the interests of my people. And Cyprus, Cypriots are Greeks and Turks. And we have to live together. We may have different roots, whatever it is, but it's a common nationality, it's a common interest, it's a common country. And this is a way to do it beyond nationalism and narrow-mindedness and ugly demonstrations that we definitely condemn them. And we belong to this world, and this is our world. So, of course, we look in the interest of the Cyprus people, but I think it's the interest of United Kingdom and Europe to help resolve this situation. I think the American factor is very active on the Cyprus issue, and they're helping. But we would like to see more involvement from the part of Europe, and particularly from the part of United Kingdom, Great Britain, because you know very well the Cyprus situation. And to be very realistic, we think that the countries that can use influence towards Turkey, towards Erdogan again, we like it or not, a stable government in Turkey is important. We cannot allow feelings in this situation. We're talking politically. I think that the United States and the UK can be very important in using influence. I don't use the word pressure because I know the international and diplomatic language. After many years, member of parliament, you know, etc., etc. So thank you again for coming here tonight. I thank my friends, members of parliament and good friends of Cyprus, and members of the so-called Cyprus lobby. It's a UK lobby, believe me. My friend Andreas, my friend Gigis. Excuse me if I don't recognize my friend Andy. Is 12 years traveling for a relatively old young man of 74. So thank you again for coming. And the months ahead are going to be very important for Cyprus. We would like UK, your government and your parliament to play a decisive role, a more decisive role. We would like you to be involved, and we will not blame you that you get involved, because usually what we do is we invite our friends to help us, and when they help us, if we don't like exactly how they help us, we start, you know, being unhappy. No, we would like you to help us, and we would like you to help achieve a reunified Cyprus. And we would like you to help us, people from Famagusta, to return to our homes and exercise the inalienable right of every refugee from every town to have the right, at least, to claim his land and property and home. So thank you again.
Well, thanks, Mayor, for arriving late at our workplace, shall we say. You're more than welcome. And I remember certainly the last time that you visited, you showed us some horrific photographs and videos of what's exactly happening in Famagusta. Like David, I used a family holiday to look at Famagusta from a distance, both from the land and indeed the sea, and it is quite heartbreaking when you see such a beautiful place with such potential literally going to waste, and it is somewhat disappointing. But can I say politically, you heard earlier on from Gareth Edwards, who is the new spokesperson from the Labour Party in terms of dealing with Europe. All I would say, without being disrespectful to any of my party's previous spokespersons on Europe, Gareth Thomas is a committed person who tends to deliver the things that he says. So as from a Labour Party point of view, I'm absolutely delighted that Gareth is now in that position. And likewise, all I have to say in terms of the peace process, what I've heard, the limited information I have to date, I'm extremely delighted that once we see the Americans are now expressing an interest in Cyprus and indeed in Famagusta, although the cynic in me suggests that it may be something to do with the minerals that's found round about the island, but that's just me being cynical. But I'm delighted the Americans are at last showing an interest, and hopefully that Britain will continue showing the same interest. You will probably see, and I've submitted what's called an early day motion to the fact that the international condemnation of the actions of Russia in terms of invading Crimea. And the motion that I've submitted to Parliament simply asks the question, what's the difference between what Russia are doing in terms of the Crimea and what the Turkeys did in 1974 in Cyprus? And we would like to see the same international condemnation of what's happening in the north of Cyprus to exactly what's happening between Russia and the Crimea. Just on the question of the Council of Europe and the activities that we're carrying on in the Council of Europe, you may be aware that we are pursuing some progress, some expedition of the work of the Council of Missing Persons. And we have reached agreement, because what we were concerned about, we did the report on the Council of Missing Persons, and we were concerned it would lie on a shelf and not do anything with it. There is still slow progress, and what we have decided as a committee on the Council of Europe, that we will be inviting representatives, cross-community representatives, to the next meeting of the Council of Europe Migration Committee, and ask them quite simply where the problems lie, where the barriers lie, what resources do you have, and more importantly, how long is it going to take for those, the friends and family of the missing persons to get some closure. So that's the progress that we're making in terms of the Council of Europe. Cyprus is never far away from our hearts on the Council of Europe, and we'll continue to do that. But I'm delighted, as I say, to see that progress has been making, and some progress has been made in terms of the peace process, in terms of Famagusta. But I'm also well aware that there's been many false dawns in the past, and I sincerely hope on this occasion we do make some progress.
Well, can I first of all tell you all what a pleasure it's to be here with Alexis. He's a very, very good and close and long-time friend, and not only since he got this new job, much more before that, when he was the leading figure in the Cyprus Parliament, and his door was always open to anybody that wanted to talk about Cyprus, and believe me, it was open a lot, and I'm always grateful that he is chosen in another role to take on the thing on behalf of Famagusta, and we all know on this table at the top how strong the feelings are about Famagusta. We're regularly contacted time and time again by the association over the years, and actually told that it needed to be free and the people from it needed to return home. And that's not surprising. It's a theme which is erupted in the minds and hearts of Cypriot people ever since 1974. And we all know what happened in 1974, but what remains outstanding is the illegality and the unfairness of what actually occurred. There still remains well over 1,000 people missing. Hundreds have been identified as being assassinated during the course of that illegal invasion. And what's more, the land and property has been taken from people and is in some cases being sold on in other forms to people from abroad, including British people, and many of them very, very near to your hometown of Famagusta. The reality is all of that is illegal, and as we've seen in the Council of Europe and the Council of Ministers, the actions which have been taken in the court by good people from Cyprus have determined that those properties will eventually have to come back to their rightful owners. And that's the reality. No matter what people try and do in terms of deals, the courts in Europe have already determined the facts. Lucidis and all of those cases that's gone before mean that no matter how long people have been in it, no matter what people have paid, they have to return the land back to the original owners, and they must pay for the use they've had during the time since the 1974 invasion. That's important, because Lucidis was never cancelled. They didn't just pay in money, Turkey, and say that's the end of it. They paid for the hire of the building for all of those years. So that's set a precedent. Others have followed already, and sooner than get the court judgments, what's happened is that Turkey has settled. And they've settled in a number of high-profile cases, but they've set a precedent. And ultimately, it will come upon them and all the people there to actually return those lands back. After all, if they don't, what little point has there been in membership of the European community? We campaigned for 25 years to take Cyprus in, against all odds, and politicians on all sides of the chamber who actually said it would be a problem. The only thing you want in Cyprus in is because you want to settle the argument with Turkey. That's true. It's true. But a lot more. Europe couldn't afford to not let Cyprus in. Cyprus has a very long history of being the watchtower of Europe, the trading post of the Middle East. The reality is they couldn't leave a country outside of Europe, on the branches of Europe, that had its own stock exchange, its own banking system, all of that. It would pose a possible financial problem for Europe itself. But what came in was something else. They thought you could just let you through here and then they could negotiate some kind of a settlement. With a power which is not a member of the European community, but is based on a defence front, on other forms that's there. Now I say this, that Cyprus is a full, honest member of the European Union, and there is no right for what's happened to occur. Jim Sheridan laid the motion which I signed very, very clearly about Russia and the Ukraine. And he said, it's all very good to be saying that, but what about Cyprus? What about the illegal occupation and illegal invasion and the killings which occurred there? And now, Cyprus, before the 1960 Act, was a member of Britain, member of our community. We've let, why on earth do you keep coming back here and talking to British politicians? I do not know. Because you've never been let down badly by anybody else in the world. They've opened the shores and let you home. And we have continued as a guarantor power, let you down. Let you down in interest, in defence terms and trade terms. Now the game's changed. It's changing. Because with the fines of the noble oil fields and gas fields of Europe, and everybody, Alexi, tries to play this down, but you know the reality of it. All of the exchange which we've done on the 12 grids, there are 12 grids available, 4 of which, the richest 4, are in the area based in Cyprus. And Turkey can argue what it likes. They will remain in the Cyprus Republic. Because the reality is, when they're in there, they're in Europe. And Europe will give up a lot. They'll forget things that occurred. They'll turn away and cough and make an excuse. But they won't give up oil and gas. They will be the largest producer of oil and gas. It's the second largest shipping fleet in the world in Cyprus. And Cyprus will very soon become the gas station of Europe. And I'll tell you why. They're not going to, the international consortium family is not going to put their refinery and an exit area They're not going to put it in the Lebanon, it's too unsafe. They're not going to put it in Egypt, it's too unsafe. They don't want it to go in Israel, it's no good to be there. There'll be a continuous argument. And they certainly know that Turkey can't take it because it's already overburdened with the pipeline which is bringing in from the Caspian Sea. So there we have it. Europe needs Cyprus, and yet it continually coughs, turns away, makes an excuse, changes the subject all the time along. Now, the only thing that has got to apply in these talks is that the realisation must be of Europe that Cyprus is a full member of the family. The family itself is one of us, every one of us. And any denial of that denies the right to be a union. You know, that's the reality. We are a family or we're nothing at all. We're not just a market square. We're not just a trading base. We're actually a family that's looking after all of our interests in an economic form, but also much more creating a different type of world than there's been before. A world, incidentally, which since there's been a European Union and still since membership, has actually progressed from 2 world wars quite well. There's still been a couple of wars in between, but it's by and large progressed itself and increased and bettered the lives and conditions of people who live within it. But I say this to you, just in conclusion. We in here, of all political parties, we have already set our minds of who is right in this issue. We have set our minds to that, and we've set our tasks to that, and we'll continue that. Because until such times as Famagusta is free and other areas are allowed to be free too, we will not give up that ghost because it's right. It's not just a side of one side or the other, a taking sides. We do it because it's correct. It's ultimately what we all stand for, freedom and democracy and the European family. And the sooner we get it, the better. Thank you.
I wasn't here for the start of the meeting. Jeremy Corbyn, MP Islington North, and Vasilis has a business in my constituency, so you cannot be denied. And I'm really pleased you've got the meeting here tonight. I want to say thank you to you and to all the others, because some of us go back a very long way. We first met in 1974 when the occupation invasion happened, and the injustice then is just as bad as the injustice now. It's the same injustice of illegal occupation and partition of the island. And obviously, people lost their homes, lost their lives, people disappeared, things were destroyed, and that continues. And so until there is proper justice for everyone in Cyprus, this campaign will carry on. It's as simple as that. The points that Alan and Jim have made, I absolutely support. I've supported the motions that they've put down, and it is up to the guarantor powers, Alan's quite right, that knowingly and responsibly signed the 1960 independence agreement which guaranteed the independence of Cyprus. It is up to them to ensure that that guarantee actually means something and that the partition ends and people are free to return to their own homes. That has to be the objective, it has to be the determination, and everyone in this room is very determined on that. They've shown that over the past 40 years and are not going to give up. Thank you very much.
Basically, I just want to discuss the nature of the petition carried out by the Famagusta Association and highlight the underlying reason why it was done. Presently, we all know the leaders of the two communities are in discussions to try and find a viable solution to the Cyprus problem acceptable by both communities. You can have everyone knows you can have all the discussions in the world, but a solution cannot be found unless fundamentally the people involved agree and are willing to cohabit and co-create between them. Now, in order to achieve this willingness by both communities, you have to install trust and confidence between the two communities. So how does one achieve this? Through confidence-building measures, through engagements, and all sorts of different activities. Now, we carried out the petition regarding the return of Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants and the opening of the port for joint use with the Turkish Cypriots for one reason only: to try and establish a bond between both communities and demonstrate that through work and cooperation, that trust and confidence will be built. If you imagine Famagusta in the present state, will have to be demolished and will have to be rebuilt. Now, there's a perfect, unique opportunity for both communities to become involved in the project, engage themselves socially, economically, emotionally, if you like, all aspects of life. And hopefully, this cooperation between the two communities on Famagusta can bring an overall solution to the Cyprus problem. Why? Because Cyprus at the moment is divided. It's a big country. If you start off with a small area like Famagusta and you use it, as my right honourable friend mentioned, as a pilot scheme, a test case, and it does achieve the objective, then that can be used as a platform to find a solution to the Cyprus problem. Now, the UK ambassador to Cyprus has endorsed the idea. The USA ambassador to Cyprus has endorsed the idea. The European Affairs Committee back in December last year endorsed this idea. And we sincerely hope that Her Majesty's government and the members of Parliament would equally endorse this idea. Thank you.
On Sunday, we met after church because a very important thing was that we are able to go to church in the walled town of Famagusta, in the medieval town. I met with the Turkish Cypriot mayor. Famagusta, as you know, had 2 mayors as per the Constitution of 1960, and we have agreed on Good Friday. We will celebrate Good Friday and we will have a procession around the church and the walled town, something which did not happen in that area for the last 58 years. So I think it's a very important message what we are doing. I would like to thank especially my very good friend Sir Alan Mill for his good words about me, and he knows, and I know him for many years, and what we have been trying. I'd like to tell you that for me, being a mayor of Famagusta, after being member of parliament for about 5 terms, 24 years, is a labor of love. And I mean it, because it's a very frustrating thing to be a refugee today in Cyprus. It's nice to insist on the rule of law and legality and achieve a just solution. And we try to get a just solution and a viable solution for the Cyprus issue. But after 40 years, we see a lot of friends dying, having left us. We see the younger generation suffering. We are talking about Europe. Yeah, Europe is very important. Europe is a beautiful name. It's a name of the daughter of Cadmus. Europe is keeping the high standards, the Greek letters and the Roman law and all these wonderful things about Europe today. But we have also to look at realities. We have to remember a few things. We have to remember, unfortunately, the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, which has created a legal body and a legal entity that refugees have to apply. And this is a very big problem about property, because they are using the legality of the European Court of Human Rights. And this has started from Europe, unfortunately. We expected different things, but different things are happening. We did not expect the bail-in, which has destroyed the spine of the Cyprus economy. That was a very tough decision for the European friends. They have not taken into consideration that these people, Cyprus economy, we had our excesses, and every country, and all capitals of the world know about the financial excesses, and there have been financial excesses in Cyprus. But it was a very tough blow against the people of Cyprus. It didn't really hit at those that should hit. It hit at the people in the street. It hit the refugees. Foreign policy of Europe. Where do we see the foreign policy of Europe? We see the economic policy of Germany. This is the foreign policy of Europe for the moment. So right, we are with you and we are fighting, and we are appreciative that you stand with us, and we are fighting a tough battle in Cyprus for our rights and the rights of our children. But you have to, at the end, arrive at a compromise to be able to reunify Cyprus. Otherwise, we will stay with this fight and go on and on. Of course, we like to see changes. We like to see different things. We like to see a better world, and we are fighting for that. But we, after 40 years, President Anastasiadis and the people of Cyprus, and of course, at the end, we will go to a referendum on both sides to decide what's best for the future generations. And I like to promise our friends here in London that they know me, and I know them very well, and our friends in the British Parliament, that they have done so many things for us, that they will continue this fight, but they will also understand the importance of arriving at a solution to the Cyprus problem. And I would like to believe that this language you hear from Sir Alan, my friend, very good friend Alan, and David Barrows, and all of you, and appreciate Jim Sheridan, and we have all our friends here, and I'm sorry I missed, we came late and I didn't see Betty Boothroyd, a very good old friend. I like to believe that the same language, we hear it from the part of the government, because in this world it's not only parliaments, and I know as a parliamentarian, like you, but it's also the language of government that is very important as regards the relations of nations, and the law of nations, and the rules in the relations of nations. So these are the realities. And we have to find and arrive at a solution through these realities, and at the same time fighting for the human rights in Cyprus. And we will continue fighting for them, but at the same time we will take into consideration the realities of the people that rule the world. Nobody likes dictatorships and autocratic regimes. And a regime like Mr. Erdogan's regime, or what is happening in Ukraine. And we cannot have double standards, but they are also economic interests, and we have to survive. So we cannot change the world in one day. And if we hope to change it in 100 years, we will not be there to fight for that. So thank you again. And what I like to promise to our friends, and I have their promise, that we are fighting the same battle we started after 1974. And I have been there since that time. But I also realize how important it is if we achieve a viable solution with the present realities in the area, with the gas in Cyprus, and we will use rightly and cleverly what cards we have in our hands, and will not make the same mistakes, and be united. If we can, through all this, and particularly through unity of our people, and with your help, I think that the time is near to achieve a solution. That's why I will repeat that we are close to make or break. Thank you.